The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
And welcome to the Writer's Block Podcast. I'm Mandra Biscornet, and I believe everyone has a story to tell. What's yours?
I'm Deborah Monk, empowering you to find your creative voice.
And we don't have Shelley with us today, but we do have an exciting show.
We always miss her, though.
We always miss
Yes.
Shelley Sparkle when she's not here.
But we're going to make up for it because we're doing a very interesting show. I think this was so fun.
We are. Deb and I are going to explore great beginnings. We're going to look at how different authors have chosen to start their books. So we have a few books here, and we'll do a little bit of reading and then discuss what it is that pulls us right into that book from the start. Deb, what should we start with?
Let's start with Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book.
All right, Neil
Gaiman.
Gaiman.
Yes. The knife had a handle of polished black bone and a blade finer and sharper than any razor. If it sliced you, you might not even know you had been cut, not immediately. The knife had done almost everything it was brought to that house to do, and both the blade and the handle were wet. The street door was still open just a little, where the knife and the man who held it had slipped in, and wisps of nighttime mist slithered and twined into the house through the open door. The man Jack paused on the landing. With his left hand, he pulled a large white handkerchief from the pocket of his black coat, and with it he wiped off the knife and his gloved right hand, which had been holding it, then put the handkerchief away. The hunt was almost over. He had left the woman in her bed, the man on the bedroom floor, and the older child in her brightly colored bedroom, surrounded by toys and half-finished models. That only left the little one, a baby, barely a toddler, to take care of. One more, and his task would be done.
Yikes.
Right?
That is horrible.
It's
good, but it's horrible.
The thing that is so interesting to me is he chose to, so if you think of this like a movie, he took the camera and he focused in on he started with the details of the knife.
Very specific.
Very
right
specific.
On
So focused on
item.
that detail. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, if he had started the camera back, there's a house with an intruder who is basically going around and murdering the whole family. It would be so easy to start with the camera pulled back with a really high view of everything that's going on.
Right.
Or even in the killer's mind, or in any of the people's mind. Well, I guess they're dead. Well, most of them, but he starts describing the knife. So you don't know, is it just a woman in her kitchen baking, getting ready for dinner? Is it it's just...
Why does it have to be a woman getting ready for dinner?
That's
Why couldn't
true.
it be a man cooking?
If it was our house, it would be a man.
It's true.
But
Sort of.
the fact that he started the whole first paragraph, actually the second paragraph as well, it's all
focused
about
on the knife.
It's so fascinating. And I found that the thing that he did so well was by focusing in and then slowly pulling the camera angle back, where at first you see the knife and then you see the man in his black coat and his white handkerchief, and then you see the home, and then you see the family, murdered throughout the home. Excuse me. By doing that, by slowly starting so specific and slowly pulling the camera back, what he's doing is he's drawing you into this story. So every step back
every time he clicks back, you have another question.
Yes.
What's going on here?
Right.
Yes.
No, wait. All right.
Why
I get
are
a
we
little more
talking about
information.
this knife?
Yes.
What's really going on here?
Right.
What's the motivation?
And you start to suspect, I think,
You're developing theories right out of the gate.
Yes.
Well, and it's those questions that keep you reading the next paragraph,
Yeah, I need to
the
get
next
answers.
page, why are we talking about this knife? Why is this important? Oh, okay, so it's a man is holding it. Oh, okay, the door's open.
And how can you possibly not keep reading to find out? Because if the man and the woman and the older child weren't able to defend themselves, what chance does the baby have?
Right.
So how can you not keep reading?
Yes.
Which I'm not going to do.
I think he ends up adopting the baby.
You would never, ever guess what happens. Do you want me to tell you?
Does he adopt the baby? Don't tell me. What if people want to read the book?
I can. It's not for much further in. I give what happens.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, it's so good. So good. I have to say it. The baby, I won't say it.
If you want to know, you buy The Graveyard.
Yes, by Neil Gaiman.
Graveyard.
And then tell Neil Gaiman you heard about it from Deborah Monk so that Neil Gaiman will reach out to me and be on our show.
On the Writer's Block Podcast NH.
What a great
Please
beginning
like and
to
subscribe.
suck you in.
Yes. Amazing.
Yeah.
The The other thing is that I find kind of interesting is this is a full-length book. Neil Gaiman is also known for writing quite a bit of short stories. But there are pictures.
I was
Not a
going to
lot.
say that. There's illustrations
Yeah,
there.
there's illustrations throughout the book, just black and white, maybe every 20 pages or so, which is just
interesting.
kind of different. You don't
I
really
like books
see
with pictures.
that. Yeah, we know you do.
I was going to say, Brad might actually read that book with a few pictures in there.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go like every 5 pages with me, though.
So anyway, I thought
That's a great beginning. And you're right. It was just so focused and then pulled back.
Right. So it's realizing that you don't have to focus on the obvious. That you can either take a really far view from far back and then zoom in, or you can start really in tight and then slowly pull back.
Right.
And that what you focus on can really make a difference on how interesting your story is and how much you pull your reader in.
All right. Should I read?
Yeah.
So that next one?
So that's one way.
That's
One way
one.
of deciding what you focus on.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to read from Glennon Doyle Melton's Carry On Warrior. Now, this was her first
Yes.
book? Okay.
Laura's
her
Love
second?
Warrior. I think this is her
I think
first.
this is the first
Yeah,
one.
this is the first.
Carry On Warrior.
Wonderful book.
All right. A few years ago, strange things started happening to me at church. I'd find myself in the middle of a lighthearted conversation with a woman I'd just met, and the woman would make a joke that didn't sound like a joke, suggesting that our family was perfect and that this perfection made her feel bad about her own family. This happened 3 or 4 times over a 2-week period. Once a woman said, "You're just so pulled together. It makes me feel so apart." My husband Craig was standing next to me at the time, and I looked at him confused, while he looked back at me, equally confused. This is our signature interaction. I stammered my way through the rest of the conversation, and on the way home, Craig and I debriefed. We were baffled. Craig and I adore each other, but neither of us would describe the other as pulled together. These women may as well been saying to me, "I'm just so jealous of your height and culinary genius. I'm 5'2.5", and all I know of cooking is how to make the call that results in the delivery of dinner. During our debriefing, Craig and I developed a theory that if you're thin and smile a lot, people tend to believe that you have the universe's secrets in your pocket and that a raindrop has never fallen on your head. If you also happen to be wearing trendy jeans, well then, forget about it.
Again, that's another book. I mean, I read that first page and that was it. I read the first page and I went up and paid for it.
Why is that?
Well,
What is it about that beginning that...
Well, we've all had that conversation with the awkward church lady. So
No, I
it's
think...
sort of a universal theme there.
Well, that's the thing. She tapped into a universal feeling of how the world sees us and how we
Right.
see ourselves. And every single person in the world has had that feeling.
Yes.
And it's also, she's showing that she's going to reveal behind the mask.
Right.
And so she's saying, I look like what you're supposed to look like. I look like what you're all taught you want to look like, thin, in the right jeans, with your family all around you
Smiling.
at church, smiling. Right. And she's saying, even when you look like that, the reality is doesn't mean you feel like that.
Now,
and so she's going behind the mask. And that's, to me, okay, emotionally, you've tapped into a feeling that I've had, that we've all had, and I want to know what's behind your mask. Because if you're willing to share what's behind your mask and it's not that ugly or awful, maybe what's behind mine isn't that bad either. Maybe I don't need to hide as much as I've been hiding.
Could we get Neil Gaiman's knife guy to meet up with the church lady and then
See what happens.
we'll be all set?
Yeah, no. So, what do you think about that beginning? Does it suck you in?
It does. It does, because I agree that you want to know more about, okay, well, you appear to be perfect. To the church lady is saying, you kind of look like the perfect family and you got it all together. But you're kind of telling me here that that's not the case, that things are not as they seem. So what is the rest of the book going to be about when you show me, your trendy jeans are just your trendy jeans? And
well, and for me, what is so appealing about that is that it's tapping into, if you're okay, if she's going to reveal the rest of what's going on in her world, which there's a lot of what would be considered ugliness. There's drug addiction, there's bulimia. She's had a lot of issues. So if you're going to reveal that, if you're going to be that vulnerable with me, I can feel more comfortable with my own vulnerability.
But you don't know any of that from the beginning.
I don't need to. Meaning from that, she's not going to tell me I am perfect.
No,
we
I
know
understand
that's
that.
coming. And so for me, it isn't so much about I want to know I do want to know what's behind her mask, but it's the
This
comfort.
was more a universal emotion
And that I'm
appeal
going to
that
get comfort from my feelings that I have that you're going to talk about here. And that's to me. So it isn't just that she's going to reveal behind her door. It's that I'm going to be more comfortable behind my mask by
That's
going
interesting.
through that
I didn't
relationship
necessarily
with
go
you.
there. I just got interested in what.
I don't know that would probably be something that would appeal to you as much. I don't
Yeah.
know that you have that big a mask, thick a mask. Maybe, I don't know.
Tell us about your drug addiction, Amanda.
Yeah, it's going to be a very short conversation.
Yeah. So that's a very different. Here we're starting this novel,
Right.
Neil's book, where we're starting with action, and it's all about the camera angles, about what the reader's seeing. Here, it's all about what the reader's going to, the emotional journey, the feelings that are going to be shared
Yes.
to me throughout that. So it's a very different type of book. But again, first page, bought the book. First page, bought the book.
And what I did like about it was the humor. I like that too. Like,
Yes.
It's probably she's going to be funny. Like she's
Yes.
going to be
The forget about
The
it.
forget
and she
about
spelled
it.
FUGGEDABOUITIT.
right and talking about her height and her culinary genius. It's going to be like,
Sopranos.
well, okay, this is
She went
Yeah.
Sopranos on us.
Right.
So
Yes.
that to me was like, all right, this girl has a little personality and some humor, and that'll be fun for me to read.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
All right,
I felt
so-
like it's a little bit of a Wizard of Oz, of an emotional Wizard of Oz type story.
How different is Girl in Pieces going to be? with
Right,
that
let's
opening?
take a look at that one.
Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow. And may I say, this is her first book.
You may say that.
You may say that.
Because it's true. This is her first book.
Okay.
This is the first page. Like a baby harp seal, I'm all white. My forearms are thickly bandaged, heavy as clubs. My thighs are wrapped tightly, too. White gauze peeks out from the shorts Nurse Ava pulled from the lost and found box behind the nurse's station. Like an orphan, I came here with no clothes. Like an orphan, I was wrapped in a bedsheet and left on the lawn of the Regent's Hospital in the freezing sleet snow, blood seeping through the flowered sheet. The security guard who found me was bathed in menthol cigarettes and the flat stink of machine coffee. There was a curly forest of white hair inside his nostrils. He said, "Holy Mother of God, girl, what has been done to you?" My mother didn't come to claim me. But I remember the stars that night. They were like salt against the sky, like someone spilled the shaker against very dark cloth. That mattered to me, their accidental beauty, the last thing I thought I might see before I died on the cold, wet grass. Oh, my God. Kathleen Glasgow, I love you. I'm madly, madly in love with you. I stood in Barnes & Noble with this book. If I could have frothed at the mouth and railed at the gods, why aren't I that talented? That's what I did. And then I went up and bought her book.
Right. And we have to say, that's how you choose books. You read the first page.
Yes.
Versus the back cover or anything
Yes.
like that. So this, again,
I mean, what did you think of that first page?
I think, again, it was very specific. I think the writing is amazing. And things like machine coffee. He smelled the
Yes.
menthol cigarettes and
she
machine
has
coffee.
a great turn of phrase.
Yes.
And like a baby harp seal, I'm all white. My forearms are thickly bandaged, heavy as clubs.
And
Don't
again-
they club baby seals?
Yes.
That's how they kill seals. And so she uses that word. That's not a mistake. So she's in his arms. He picks her up off the grass, and she sees the curly forest of white hairs in his nostrils because she's looking up.
It's disgusting.
And no, not at all. And
Yes, it is.
later, she's
Disgusting.
looking up at the sky.
Right.
So she's got, we know
stars.
she's wounded, and her view of the world is from the ground
And we
up.
know that this is a dude who just has his nose hair going right into his mustache.
Stop. And he also
It's
says,
disturbing.
the guard says, "Holy Mother of God," and her next line is, "But my mother didn't come to claim me."
Right.
He doesn't just say, "Oh God." He says, "Holy Mother of God." Stars like salt against the sky, like someone spilled the shaker against a very dark cloth. That mattered to me, their accidental beauty, the last thing I thought I might see.
I mean, the writing is absolutely beautiful, and the the metaphors
Are
and word, like her
beyond.
word choice is.
The way
Now, does she carry that through the book, or is this just first page salesmanship right here?
But also back to Jonathan, your first point, this brings up a lot of questions.
Right.
Why is she here? Why is she in this awful state? And what happened to get her there? So you want to read more.
See, and of course it does do that, but I don't. For me, in this one, I don't need it to do that. Meaning, I don't care if I have any more questions. I'm going to keep reading anyway. I call this
Because you recognize the talent in the writing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I called it a poetic roller coaster of words and images.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you ask, I just bought this book a few days ago, so I haven't finished it. The other thing that she does, so that's page 1. The next page covers a fourth, a fifth of the, so it's like she does almost every page is a new chapter, and they're not even full pages.
Oh, wow, they're short.
Yes. Now, that does tend to change a little bit as it gets further in.
Okay.
But she really is writing her own style. I mean, this book I have not seen a book like this in a long time where I picked it up.
So she's really concentrating her information, and it doesn't matter to her how many pages she ends up with at the end of the book. She's just a half a page, but it's concentrated and you get the message.
Why don't you read one more for us? Just
Here's
because
yes.
it's a short paragraph
So you can
to get
see
right.
that this isn't a paragraph. This is the second page. This is all that's on the second page.
Okay.
The girls here, they try to get me to talk. They want to know, what's your story, Morning Glory? Tell us your tale, Snail. I hear their stories every day in group, at lunch, in crafts, at breakfast, at dinner, on and on. These words that spill from them, black memories, they can't stop. Their stories are eating them alive, turning them inside out. They cannot stop talking. I cut all my words out. My heart was too full of them.
So now we get another little glimpse of what it might be about.
I mean, we know that she's in a hospital.
Yeah, psychiatric hospital.
A psychiatric hospital because of the way she says, they talk all the time at
going to
group, at crafts, at lunch. But in a sentence, she tells us that. She doesn't say I'm in a mental hospital. She doesn't, but she tells us that in a sentence that doesn't say that.
Right. And she doesn't even really describe the setting of what it looks like, but you get a really good sense of that.
You get such a sense, and you get this vision of all these wounded girls.
Right.
Who are all, unable to stop their horrible stories from pouring out of them. And she cut all her words out because her heart was too full of them, of black memories.
Right.
And, is she a cutter?
Well, that's
exactly.
Right. That's what it makes me think.
It does make you think that she doesn't have to be.
You don't know, but.
Right. So, I mean, she is just.
At the risk of turning this into a book review podcast, what would be the message that you're attempting to deliver to our listeners?
I have a strong message from this book. I could probably cry saying this message because it's what I felt. Oh, it's so ridiculous. I know. But I picked up this book and I thought, she's writing the way she wants to write. You're not supposed to make a paragraph is a whole chapter. It's a whole page. And then the next is she covers, there's more white space on these pages than there is writing. Mm-hmm. You're not supposed to do that, but she did it. And she did it so beautifully and so well.
Well, she broke the rules, but she has such a talent with the way she uses the words that she probably can get away with it.
Beyond can get away with it. Let's see, a New York Times bestseller. First book.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure she has been writing all her life. You don't start like this.
So really the whole takeaway, I think, is once you get everything settled as far as your book is written, you really need to work on this first page because a decent portion of the reading population is going to look at the first page before they buy the book if it's in hard copy.
Absolutely. Right, whether it's hard copy or not.
Yeah, so there's your maybe second sales pitch because the back of the book is going to be important, but that first page really needs to grab the reader
immediately.
And suck them into the story. Give them some details, but also really probably give them more questions than answers.
Right.
And it's so easy to say, we all know you have to do that. If you don't catch them on the first page, they're not going to read your whole book.
Right.
And, you have to catch them and keep them. But what we did here is we used 3 very, very different examples. So the message here is, you learn from these people, learn the skills of how you do it. I mean, Neil Gaiman used a skill, the camera angle,
Right, very
Glennon, Doyle,
specific.
Melton used a skill,
An
universal emotion.
Right.
This woman used a skill, her incredible metaphors.
Mm-hmm.
But then realize you can know your tools, and then use what you want, what feels right to you for your story.
And what is the best for the story,
Right.
Like that. Those are 3 strong beginnings. The one with the knife was just
unbelievable. Right. But I believe with all my heart, Neil Gaiman could write this book. Glennon, Doyle, Melton could write this book. It would be different, but they're all such skilled writers that I believe we could give them the same assignment of all 3 of you use the camera angle, all 3 of you use universal emotion, and they will write fabulous books.
But the beginning of the book is so important because, you immediately have to want to know who, why, ask those questions, be interested to keep reading.
Right. Absolutely. So hopefully we've helped you all start your book
Yeah.
well, and we'll go back and look at ours.
Right, and rewrite. Thank you for listening, and be sure to check out the Writer's Block NH Facebook and the Writer's Block podcast on your favorite podcast catcher. If you'd like to hear this episode again or share it with a friend, you can head on over to the UnitedPodcastNetwork.tv. That's UnitedPodcastNetwork.tv. Thank you for listening, and we hope to inspire and empower you to tell your own story.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.